As you've already heard, I'm going to be speaking about my experiences as a parent, but also from the Challenging Behaviour Foundation, which is a small charity which focuses particularly on the needs of individuals with severe learning disabilities and behaviour described as challenging, and we span across children's and adults. And as a charity, we provide information and support to individual families and professionals working with those families, but we also have a strategic influencing role in that we try to influence people like Sheila in government who have a strategic role to play. So this is what I'm going to be covering, and it's quite a lot to cover in 20 minutes, so I might talk quite quickly, and Joe's going to remind me when I'm running out of time. So I'm just going to cover what families expect. I'm going to cover the importance of working together. I'm very briefly, because I was asked to speak about the Care Quality Commission Learning Disability Review, but very briefly cover a couple of slides on that. But I'm going to start with who we are talking about and what we want to achieve. So we need to remember that we're talking about individuals who have the same feelings, the same needs and the same rights as we all do. And Professor Jim Mansell reminded us in his report that people whose behaviour challenges have the same needs as everyone else, in addition to their special needs for help to overcome the problem their behaviour presents. They do not surrender their need for personal relationships, for growth and development, or for anything else because their behaviour presents a challenge to services. They have the same human rights as everyone else. And this picture is of my 3 children, and the reason it's there is because I want to make the point that my aspirations for all 3 of them are the same, and that is that they have happy, interesting and fulfilling lives, and that they achieve their potential. And the only difference between Daniel and his sisters are that he needs more support to enable him to realise those ambitions. And that shouldn't be a problem, because there's a great deal of information that we have about how to support him and to support him well. This conference is particularly focusing on safeguarding issues. So I just want to begin by considering safeguarding for all 3 of my children. Hannah, my eldest daughter, is a police officer. So she's regularly exposed to danger, but she's able to assess her own safety and and individual situations, and she has training and support, so she's able to minimise the risks to herself. My youngest daughter Sophie is at university, and again exposed to some risky situations, but she's able, hopefully, to avoid those situations, able to recognise them, and if she gets into them, she has a range of skills that she can call on to help her manage those risks and minimise them. Daniel, however, is unable to recognise risks for himself, but we are able to recognise the risks for him. Firstly, that he is incredibly vulnerable, and secondly, that certain situations increase those risks. We have a responsibility to ensure we do not put him in situations that increase the risk of abuse. We also need to remind ourselves what services are there for. They are there to provide good outcomes for the individual, and we know that we can do that through a person-centred approach to planning and delivering support and services, which are local, high quality and flexible. In other words, what we should be doing is putting policy into practice. The measure of a good support or service is whether it results in good outcomes for the individual. I was asked to talk about what families want, and we keep asking families over and over again, what is it that you want? And over the years, we've done dozens of consultations, and consistently, families tell us the same things. Families tell us that they want information that is accessible, timely, and practical, and that they want support at times to understand and use this information. They tell us that they want good support for their relative. Often they don't talk about their own support needs, and they say, if you get it right for him, you get it right for me. And thirdly, they tell us that they want to be valued as partners, for their knowledge and experience to be acknowledged and valued, and to be included fully as partners. Unfortunately, their experiences are often very different. In 2010, the Challenging Behaviour Foundation and TISARD asked families of people with learning disabilities and behaviour that challenges about their experiences. They described a lack of local expertise and capability in understanding and responding to challenging behaviour. They described difficulty accessing services unless they were in crisis. They described a lack of support and training for themselves. They described a lack of information to plan realistically and hopefully for the future. So they were not provided with a range of possibilities. Often they were just told, this is what's available. And they were not included as essential partners. So we know what kinds of circumstances increase risk to people with learning disability whose behaviour challenges. We know what families want, but we know that often their experiences are very different. So here are 2 quotes from families about when we get it wrong. I know how I would feel if I was suddenly taken away from all that was familiar to me and had to live with people I didn't know who were in crisis and behaving in ways that were challenging. The second quote is from Margaret's serious case review from a family carer. It was so traumatic when he was taken away to Winterbourne View, and then it just got worse, absolutely horrendous, and I can't yet see the light at the end of the tunnel. So as Sheila's already said, after Winterbourne View, there are a number of reviews and investigations, and the Care Quality Commission carried out a review of learning disability services. So this included 150 unannounced visits of learning disability services, and it's inspected against 2 outcomes. Outcome 4, which is care and welfare, and outcome 7, which is safeguarding from abuse. 48% of locations were non-compliant with outcome 4 and 7. And the length of stay in assessment and treatment units, as we've already heard, range between 6 weeks and 17 years. These inspections were different to the usual Care Quality Commission inspections because they utilised experts by experience. So the inspection teams consisted of a CQC lead inspector, usually an additional CQC inspector, a professional advisor, an expert by experience who was a person who'd used services with their support worker, and an expert by experience who was a family carer of a person with complex needs who'd used similar services or had needs that were similar. The key findings from those 145 services, 5 were excluded because they were part of the pilot, found, and a quote from the final report, a significant shortfall between policy and practice. And in too many cases, care was not person-centred.